Hello everyone, you are listening to and or watching Local 514. Today we're going to be shifting our focus onto the Democratic Republic of Congo. As conflicts continue to escalate in the eastern region of the country, with the rebel group M23 taking over key cities and displacing thousands, the Congolese diaspora around the world has been mobilizing, including here in Montreal. I spoke with Yedidya Ebosiri and Cindy Lufuluabo from Réseau Mayele. They're a youth group organization built by and for the Congolese diaspora that's based on community development and empowering youth through dialogue, education, and action. In having a conversation with them, I learned more about the movement that they're trying to build at a time where youth are trying to involve themselves more in community action. Réseau Mayele is showing them that it's possible. I'm Perle-Mérode Kabambi, and here was our conversation. I'm curious to know, how are these experiences or this situation being experienced in Canada and understood by the Congolese diaspora in Montreal and also by you guys as well?
I can start. So thank you so much for having us. It's really an honor to be here and to be able to talk about such an interesting and important topic as well. So very grateful to be here. As for your question, how do we receive and understand the situation that is currently going on in DRC? I believe that there's still a lot of work to do in terms of understanding, because it is such a complex situation. So many different actors, so many different factors to take account of when we're discussing the DRC conflict. Multiple people from my personal standpoint, when I have conversation with the people around me or even people that I don't necessarily know, usually this conflict is reduced to a mind conflict or ethnical conflict where people just fight amongst themselves without taking into account all of the external factors, like the external powers that are involved, but also the responsibility of the local government. So I believe that people in the diaspora still have, there is mobilization that is currently going on, but I feel like there's so much more that could be done. And it starts by education, and it starts by trying to also maybe having more tools and transparency when it comes to the complexity of the conflict itself. That's what I would say.
Like Yedidya said, I think it's a very complex conflict to understand. And one thing we really want to do at Réseau Mayele is to help the many Congolese who grew up in Montreal, here in Canada, Montreal, Quebec, who can feel distant and who can feel like, I know there's something going on in my country. The exact terms, factors, and how everything like relate to each other may be a little bit difficult to understand, especially for people who have never been there or who only related to through culture. So one of the things that's really important for us to do is not only to create a space where we can sit down and talk about this conflict and share the knowledge that each of us have, but also to help people understand and to feel like, okay, we know we're very far away from all of this, but we still want to be able to feel like it's a conflict these are our brothers or sisters who are going through all of those difficult times, and we want to be able to feel like we have certain responsibilities towards what's going on, and to feel like one way or another we can try to help the country get better, or even possibly go back to Congo and act as a positive actor in this very, very hard conflict.
And as we see it, we see a lot of mobilization happening across the world. There's been a couple protests here in Montreal, even for that cause. You mentioned a little bit in your answer, Cindy, Réseau Mayele. What is that, and how are you guys mobilizing as well in this situation?
Réseau Mayele, what is it? That is a great question. Réseau is essentially network in French, and Mayele, just to break it down a little bit, it means knowledge, it means intelligence, it's a word in Lingala, and it's one of the national languages in DRC. That means all of those different things depending on the context. But essentially, it is a network that we have created. So an organization, a nonprofit organization that is really centered around the mobilization of the Congolese youth within Canada, within Montreal, Quebec specifically. And essentially, our mission is really to mobilize the Congolese diaspora, especially, we're really targeting the youth, so people from age 18 to all the way to 35. And we want to challenge and mobilize people around that feeling of real patriotism that is really rooted into community development, as well as a sustainable and real change in DRC. So our vision long term is really to be able to shed light and to really to shed light on the engagement, but also the excellence within our community, from an ocean to another. Like this is Canada's, I believe, kind of like tagline. And so that's really what we want to see for us within the future. And the network is by us, for us, but also for our allies, people who actually care about what's going on in the DRC, who want to see change and want to see change today. So that's what it is.
What I really wanted to say was that among the African born black population, Congo is the third one most major country where people were born, where black Canadian were born. So I think we're a community that's very important in Canada, but that we don't see yet a lot of organization built for and by Congolese youth, that try to mobilize them not only into like building career, building successful life here in Canada, but also having like tangible impact in what's going on in the country back home. So I think one of the purposes of Réseau Mayele is really to do that. Is to understand that there's a lot of Congolese here in Canada, and a lot of them were born in Congo, but a lot of them were also born here, and we're focused on making sure that all the sacrifice our parents did by moving here are worth it. So we go to school, we try our best to build a very successful life here in Canada, but also we want to make sure that we get together and we understand our culture, understand where we're coming from. Why did our parents move here? What's happening in our country? And yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons Réseau Mayele it's a very needed organization in our community.
On multiple of your guys' platforms, you described yourselves as a space for dialogue, education, mobilization. What does that mean in practice?
So we have launched our Instagram, I believe, at the maybe mid or beginning of April, if I'm not mistaken. And essentially, it's a very, very new organization. So in terms of mobilization and dialogue and how it actually translates into real life, we are currently working on a whole bunch of activities, especially content creation and events around different themes to engage with people and to start conversations around different topics. One of the main topics that we are going to discuss is identity. As identity, our Congolese identity, we believe is the foundation of patriotism and how we actually feel concern for our country. And so the question of identity is really, I think, one of the basics and the foundation of our organization, and that will translate into one of the many events that we will have going on in the next couple of months. We are currently working on our launching event that is about to come in August, so August 2nd, from 4 to 8. We are going to launch a kind of like a communication sort of campaign where people can actually will be able to register and just, get ahead into the organization, get to know us better. It'll be a time where people can obviously come together in that space so we can celebrate the beginning of Réseau Mayele and the many activities that are about to come. But essentially, content creation where we can discuss different things. And content creation includes not only like Instagram posts, but also small interviews with people from the diaspora. We're also sky's the limit for us because we're just new and we think that we can conquer all of Canada and maybe one day international. But essentially, we also want to launch a podcast that we're working on as well. And the events, and by events we mean conversations, circles of discussion, debates, conferences. We have a lot of tricks on our sleeve right now, and we're excited to share more very, very soon.
What I would add to what Yedi just said is that the lack of organization that are made specifically for the Congolese youth makes it so that we can have, like, something will happen in Congo or something will happen in our community, and we'll have conversation in small group with our parents, with our cousins, with some friends. But the fact that we don't have this, like, there's not a space, a safe space created specifically for, like, the Congolese youth, then we always have those conversations in small group, and then when things come down and, like, we move on to other things and nothing changed. So the way we want to create this space is that we can have the conversation in a bigger group, but then do something about the conversation we actually have, like transform this conversation into tangible changes. Be like, okay, people are complaining about this, so people feel like unsafe or unhappy about this, then how do we move those conversations? How do we move whatever we talked about into something that's, like, concrete for our community? So I think the conversation is the beginning, but it's just the first step into making changes in our community for our community to be more empowered, to be more successful, to thrive better in, like, every shape and form.
Definitely, that's so right, so true, especially what you were saying about what's happening in smaller conversations never actually develops into something greater. I think you guys are working with Jennifer's, right, as well, right? Yeah, I've known her for a while now, and I've done some side projects with her too. And one thing that really stuck with me when I was having a conversation with her was how she was telling me when she was organizing one of the first protests in Montreal for Congo, she was having a phone call with the city because you have to organize with the city before having a protest, right? And the person she was on the phone with was actually so thrilled to finally have the Congolese community mobilize for this, because a lot of protests that have been happening have been for, like, other countries who are also in struggle right now, but Congo is in just as much a struggle, and we haven't been seeing that same reactiveness from the community. So definitely, to your point, grouping people together or just making something out of those small conversations is definitely something that needs to be done by our community. And it's great to see that you guys are trying to bring some more uproar or some more movement in that. You guys also have a specific focus on youth to awaken their responsibility. Why the youth specifically, and what role do they play in shaping this movement and this reaction, or positive reaction?
Yes, I do want to circle back to what you just mentioned prior to answering your question, because you've talked about, like, the protest, and I was one of the people who actually went to the protest. And just for, like, fun story, Réseau Mayele was born out of the frustration that I felt during the protest, because I felt there was not enough people. Like, that's literally the origin story. Like, someone would say this was the villain origin story, but this was, like, Mayele's origin story. It was born out of the fact that this was such a needed protest, and it was organized in Montreal. Like, most of the protests that we've seen in Canada were in Ottawa. I think there was one maybe in Gatineau. I'm not entirely sure, but it was like one of the first protests that was actually relayed on social medias and stuff like that. And I was expecting for so much people to come up, knowing that we are more than 37,000 Congolese people, according to like an old stat from Statistique Canada from 2021. We're way more than that probably, but I was expecting like thousands of people or like at least hundreds of people. But I think we ended up being maybe not more than 80 people, and that's where, like, that's kind of like my sister and I, my sister who also co-founded the organization. We both sat down and we were like, there's something wrong. There is a problem, and that problem is kind of like screaming at us right now that it needs to be solved. So yeah, just wanted to circle back to that because it is a great point in that, like, we need people who actually stand up and say, okay, we need leadership, we need a structure to organize all of this so that people are more aware and that the information can circulate more easily within our community. As for why the youth specifically, youth is the future. We've seen it times and times again in so many different ways, whether it comes to social change. In the 70s, I'm thinking about like the Black Panther movements, like that's the first example that came to mind. But Fred Hampton was 21 years old. We're talking about all of these different social changes and revolutions that we've seen in the world were carried by young people most of the times. And I believe that when you're young, you kind of have like that drive, and you have sort of a fire that kind of lights up when there's something going on in the world that you care about. And so Congo needs it needs the youth to be on fire. And when we're talking about the youth, we're talking about the youth locally, so in Congo, but also the youth that has grown up like maybe elsewhere in the world, so the diaspora. And so yeah, I think that we're the future, man. Like we're the future.
I completely agree with Yedi. The youth is the future. And I would hear about the politics in Congo, and I would hear, and like at home, my uncles, my auntie, I would hear and have hear conversation about what's going on in Congo, but I would never have those conversations with people my age, either because we didn't have all the information, we didn't feel like it was our place, but now we're the adults kind of the new generation. And I feel like growing up here in Montreal sometimes, like not just in Montreal, but growing up outside of Congo, you may feel sometimes like it's not my place to intervene or have an opinion about what's going on there. I never lived there, so like who am I? But like Yedi said at the beginning of the interview, the main theme that comes when we talk about Réseau Mayele is identity. We want to remind like the youth, like although we grew up here, we remain and forever will be Congolese. And we want to be sure that like if we have this conversation with the youth at a young age, then they feel, we remind them of their identity. They can grow up and feel like, okay, I may not have been to Congo or spend the rest of my life there, but I'm still Congolese, and I can still feel like I have a say, and I can do something to help the community out there. One other thing I want to also say is that most of the organizations, specifically in Montreal, that were made by and for the Congolese community, were made by older generation, the people who moved here, like when we first saw the first immigration wave of Congolese people. And most of those organizations are led by people from an older generation. The purpose of Réseau Mayele is to make sure that it is for the youth, the Congolese youth, and by the Congolese youth. Like we are all together. We live through the same struggle. We grew up with kind of like the same parents. We know what it's like to grow up in a country where our parents are not from. So we have those reality. My parents are Congolese, but I went to school here. We are a generation that understand this, go through the same struggle and understand each other's. It's a safe space to talk about our experience and also to build this identity as Congolese who grew up in Canada.
I'm curious to know as well, how do you what would have to happen for you guys to actually be, to feel like you have made an impact? I mean, already having founded this organization is already something big, but what would be the indicators to you guys to say that, like, okay, yes, we've made it, we've completed our mission, or we're on our way there? What are the small indicators that would help you guys kind of reach to that point in your understanding of how your organization is going?
I think that if we're talking like short term, the engagement that our organization has with people, so I think that comes back to building a community around Mayele network, and that the network itself becomes like a reference within our community. So locally speaking, like when someone is thinking about, I want to know more about Congo, or I want to involve myself for Congo. I have a project in mind that I want, and I need support, and I need resources to get my project that is centered around Congo, or that is somehow related to the DRC, in order to bring sustainable change and or community development. We want them to think, okay, Réseau Mayele. Like, as soon as that kind of like is part of like a conversation, the same way you're like, I want a burger, I'm going to McDonald's or something, or we're boycotting McDonald's, like Free Palestine. I'm going to, like, I need a coffee, I'm going to Tim Hortons, whatever. But essentially, the goal here is to kind of be a reference. I think that could be one of the indicators. The number of people that come to our event, the engagement on social media. But I think if we're thinking long term and we're thinking big, I believe that one of the key indicators is that we train people to be the best version of themselves, but also to raise the flag. So they have the Congolese flag literally like tattooed on their hearts every single where that they go. So hearing about, I don't know, somebody who decides to become like who becomes, I don't know, like a famous politician who's actually known to like make changes, or a social activist, or an artist who makes art and that talk about Congo and said, oh, well, I went to Réseau Mayele's event, and like I went once, I went twice, I participated in these conversations. That to me, and I believe to Cindy as well, would make us so proud. And I still think though that the mission itself, I like to think that it'll never end, that there will always be work, there will always be people to impact, there will always be people to talk to, especially because we think about not only the youth of today, but the youth of tomorrow. So today, like we won't be young forever, unfortunately. We'll have kids and stuff. But if we develop that culture of telling our people, the younger generations and the kids that we will have, that hey, like Congo runs through your veins. Like you might be born here, but it runs through your blood. You have a whole line of ancestors out there that did this and that and this. Don't you ever forget that. I believe that's kind of like when we know that, okay, we're getting somewhere. So yeah.
I don't think I have that. Like everything she said, that's it. That's right. I think like success, we can measure it by number, but the real success would be the connection, the confidence, the collective purpose that we're able to spark in the youth here in Canada. Success would be Réseau Mayele being able to last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, to surpass us, because this is not about us. It's about the fact that Congolese are in Canada and they're here to stay. And although we're here to stay, we don't want our community to lose this beautiful culture, this beautiful history. We want them to have a space here in Canada, in Montreal and Quebec, to feel like whenever I feel lost, whenever I just want to find my people, I can go there and find my people and talk about, like when I want to talk to them about whatever experience, whatever issue I feel like that's related to my identity, they will relate. So
Earlier, you guys mentioned that you have your opening event on August 2nd. For people who are watching, who are listening, who want to get involved as soon as possible. Is there anything for them, a way they could reach to you guys, to the organization, get involved, or just be a part of the organization as of to date?
Absolutely, 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 absolutely. So we are growing. Like we went from being a team. I like to call them the founding five. So we were a team of five people that came together, and then we kind of grew into. I think we believe we're 8 or 9 right now. And yeah, no, there's definitely space for people to be involved. Well, we are currently looking for people who want to really be a part of like the organizational structure, but also people who maybe want to like involve themselves more like on an occasional sort of basis. All of the help is more than welcome. You can reach directly to our Instagram, Réseau Mayele. So I believe that all of that will be somewhere. Yeah, Perle will do an awesome job at that, I'm sure. And we can also be reached by email. So currently we have our main address that we use for any requests that or even questions. If you're just like interested into knowing what we do and having more of like an in-depth presentation of the organization, we're more than happy to provide that as well. And yeah, we don't bite. We're kind of like, we're funny people too. I think we have a funny team. We have a nice team. So yeah, anyone is welcome to join.
And don't forget to come to the event on August 2nd. It would be a nice way to get introduced to the whole team, introduced to like people you may know, you may not know, but I think the event will be amazing. So we're waiting for you.
Awesome. I'll clear my schedule for August 2nd, 2025, the whole day. Uh, just to close things off, do you guys have any words of encouragement you like to offer to people who are like the diaspora in Canada who are navigating, maybe struggling with, like we mentioned earlier, finding that connection between us being here and what's going on abroad, advocacy, anything for the community, and also if you could just add in your answer, how has this whole making of the movement kind of like shaped your journey within like grounding yourself yeah, in this situation, if that makes sense.
Do you start?
Uh, I want to say first and foremost, I'm a big believer in community, and like the older I get, the more I see how community has been like just rooted in everything that I've done and anything that had like helped me grow as a woman, as a human being. So I started doing like volunteer when I was in high school because it was mandatory, and then as the year went by, I stayed in volunteering because like it was good on my resume and all that. And being part of this project showed me even the study. I studied, like I said, I studied public health, and in public health, the community is a big part of how you can improve the health of people. And to be in a project that shows being in this project is just the culminating effect of like my whole entire life in believing that community can change things. Being together, coming together as a community can change things. So if you feel hopeless, if you watch the media and you're like, oh my god, what is going on in my country, and I feel like I can't do anything, I'm not saying that I have the answer to everything, but I can tell you definitely that community is definitely the answer. Like coming together, we'll find a solution together. We'll talk with each other. We'll make each other feel a little bit better, a little bit less alone. So I think that Réseau Mayele can do that. So my answer is definitely community. Whatever you're going through, whatever's happening, community will always be the answer.
Love the answer. For like little fun fact, but Cindy and I actually met like because we were doing volunteering together in another organization, but we also like realized that we were both studying public health like in the same school. So I really relate to her answer about community and community being an answer to a lot of issues, like even personal and individualistic issues that we have. It does have an impact on your mental health and how you navigate youth and being a human being in general, whatever stage of your life you're in. As for, I believe the first part of the question, which was to what advice or closing word I would give to someone navigating this space and being kind of feeling like you belong here, but you also belong there, and not really knowing how to balance it out. I would say that conversation with your elders and conversation with people who relate to your experience can sparkle so many. You can really find comfort into this conversation, and it all comes back to community, and all comes back to what Réseau Mayele is actually striving to do, and yeah, I think that having those spaces and structures in place where you can get involved is really important. I would also say try something, and don't stay kind of like in that space where you feel like I can't do nothing because I don't understand what's going on. It's not my place to do anything. We are all responsible for what's going on in DRC, all of us, and I'm insisting on us being the Congolese youth, especially allies as well, but I believe that we have a special responsibilities because, like I said, this is where we're coming from, and it runs through our veins. And essentially, to get involved, to try and do something, go and watch that documentary that has been sitting on your listen later on YouTube about what's going on in Congo. Make that effort, make the time. Just reading something about it, trying to find some reliable sources as well. And we actually have a post about how to make sure that your source is reliable, so go and check that out. Yeah, just educating yourself. You can do a change. You are a change maker. All of us are. Like, activists are not born or like are human, like superhumans. They are made through little steps. Saying like there's something going on in the DRC is already a step. And I just encourage everyone to kind of like have that mindset that advocacy and change are the little things that you do on a daily. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was Yedi and Cindy from Réseau Mayele, the co-founder and general director, and the director of partnerships. Thank you guys so much for your time. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Val.